And my next key track, my fourth and final, is of course It's Carnival. Well, Carnival is the actual title of the song, but we always call it It's Carnival because as the hook of the song, it's Carnival, but it's actually Carnival. Featuring Destra's, her brother in music, the person who she compares herself most to, the one who she considers herself to be the female version of, Machel Montano. The king of soca himself. What I love about this record is that it feels bigger than Destra, even feels bigger than Machel, because now that Carnival has gone global in many places, because Trinidad and Tobago is the home of what we know to be Carnival culture. So we have Carnival here in Trinidad and Tobago, and then of course we have exported so much of Carnival as a product to other places. So over time, we had the Labor Day Parade in New York, you had Miami Carnival, you had Notting Hill, you had Carnival Caribana. Is it Caribana? Caribana in Toronto. But then, of course, you have other islands that now have their own versions of Carnival. Now you have Jamaica has their own version of a Trinidad Carnival. And then, of course, you go to the US and you have places like Atlanta and Hollywood and all these other places having carnivals now. And the interesting thing is that where there's Carnival, there is this song. And this song has become like a global Carnival anthem. It's big. Yeah. It's a once in a lifetime hit. But what really stands out to me on this record, and as we actually talk about the music, one is this interesting relationship that Trinidadians and Trinidadian culture has with the world around it. Because this song actually takes the whole top line melody from Cyndi Lauper's Time After Time. But what they've done, and this is how, so many of us in Trinidad and Tobago interact with the world, and this is part of globalization. This is because of our connection to American culture through media. We could almost call it like an American imperialism. This way that America exports is the world's largest exporter of media product. So we are right on America's doorstep and we are heavily influenced by so much of American media. But what they've done is taken that American thing, that song that was such a big hit on the US pop charts, and transformed it into something that's in a local space and created this song that feels organic. Like, I didn't even know that was from Time After Time for many, many years. But they bring it into a Trinidadian space. They make it feel organic. They make it feel true, if there's ever such a thing, to soca music. But another thing that I love, and I want to say this, in the process of doing that, in the process of creating this monster hit, at no point on the song does Destra sound secondary to Machel Montano.
Yeah, I agree.
New artist.
I agree.
Machel at this point has been in the game for like 20 years. And because he started as a little child, went through calypso into soca, experimented all kinds of things as a producer, as an artist, as a band leader, as an arranger, as an engineer. He is a giant at this point. Here comes Destra Garcia, and she is standing next to Machel, matching him note for note, movement for movement. It feels like brother and sister. It feels like two halves of the same coin. And she's at no point a hook girl to Machel. Like, when you listen to Machel work with Patrice Roberts later on in her career, like songs like Band of the Year, Like Yourself, for me, it feels like it took a very long time for Patrice to actually feel like she's really sharing space with Machel. It felt more like this is Machel featuring Patrice. Songs like Rollin'. She's singing the hook. She's carrying the background. She's singing the hook. She might do part of the bridge. But it's Machel who's the driving force. On this track, Machel is not the driving force on this track. They are both. And the fact that a new artist is able to do that with Machel Montano says a lot about the level of talent that you're dealing with when it comes to Destra.
It is the song. It is bigger than Destra and Machel, and I think it had to be them two to do it. Like, it's on Destra's album, and not on the question of talent, but sometimes I'm like, okay, what if Destra did this song with like this next person instead, or that next person? There's a last little drop of something that would have been missing. It had to be Machel, because when he comes on with the energy, and his voice is kind of raspy, and her voice her voice is kind of raspy too, and sometimes the rasp comes out more than others. On this one, to me, it comes out quite clear. And then you have his rasp, contrasting it. I mean, it was meant to be these two voices, these two energies, these two talents coming together for this song. And also, I love, I love, I love, I love, I love
Okay,
when
you love.
every time.
You love.
Sorry. Sorry. Every time it gets to start to wind up now.
Start to wind up now.
And the way she delivers that, it's almost like she actually winds up. Like, you know what I mean? Like vocally. And it's like when you're listening to it, you can tell it's a person, but it almost sounds like it could have some, you know, technology kind of thing going on. But it's like, no, but that's really her. And, you know, even when you see her live, it's like, that's really her. Oh my God.
That's one of those moments.
That's incredible.
That's one of those moments like, you know, when you first...
She wows you.
She wows you. It's kind of like when you first hear like a great voice like a Whitney Houston, and you hear something who's a big influence on Destra, and then you hear a song like How Will I Know? And you hear that come through on the record.
Yeah.
That's when that's what that is for me. When you hear, you know, there's a boy. I can't do it right now, boy's gone. But you hear that, and you're like, when you hear Whitney Houston for the first time, or you hear Mariah for the first time, you hear these people doing things with their voices that make you really pull back and say, what did I just hear?
Yeah.
That's what you get from a Destra song.
And you know how you were talking about coming from a musical family? The way she moves through a song. It reminds me of someone on an instrument all the time. Especially if it's, I emphasize live a lot. When she's singing, when I'm watching videos of her singing a song that I know how the song goes, and I'm hearing the variations that she's doing on stage, it reminds me of like if you give a very common melody to like a guitarist and the way they'll just, you know, make it theirs, even though it's already hers because it's her song anyway. So, yeah.